Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Season 9, Episode 26, overall 466 of Live with CDP Sports and Entertainment Talk Show, sponsored by Barry Cullen Chevrolet Dealership at 905 Woodlawn Road West in the Guelph Auto Mall. Check out barrycullen.com for the newest selection of new and pre-owned GM vehicles, their great selection of all-electric vehicles, as well as Cadillac products. You can call the dealership at 519 824-0210 and tell them Chris Pomay sent you, or you can email the dealership at info@barrycullen.com. I've been a proud customer of Barry Cullen Chevrolet Dealership here in Guelph since the year 2000, and Barry Cullen Chevrolet Dealership has been a proud sponsor of Live with CDP Sports and Entertainment Talk Show since September of 2022, and is a family-run and operated dealership here in Guelph since 1969. Live with CDP Sports and Entertainment Talk Show is also now sponsored by Wellington Brewery at 950 Woodlawn Road West here in Guelph, Ontario. Check out their website, wellingtonbrewery.ca. Try a Welly on, and please remember to drink responsibly as well. I hope everyone's doing well on this minus 18 wind chill day here in Southern Ontario on this Thursday, December 12th, 2024. And I'm excited to have my guest on today. This is going to be his second appearance on my show, and his name is Eli Ong. He's from WGN News in Chicago. He's a reporter, content creator, and a digital journalist. And Eli's going to come on and speak to us about the 2024 Chicago Bears. Good afternoon, Eli. How are you?
Pretty good. I can say that it's not as cold here in Chicago as it is in Ontario. It is, I want to say 28 degrees outside, and the real feel is like 12 degrees Fahrenheit. And we're American. We like to do Fahrenheit instead of Celsius. They didn't really teach me that as a kid, the whole 9 yards. But I'm doing good. A lot better than the Bears are nowadays, though, Chris. But where should we kick off the conversation?
Just the Chicago Bears, man, 4-9. I guess we should start with the head coach. First time in team history they fired a head coach in the middle of a season, which is hard to believe with the Bears' long history. And we must get your thoughts on Matt Eberflus. I think it's Eberflus, if I'm
You
right.
got it right. You got it right. But so I'll start with Thomas Brown. I think he is a breath of fresh air for this team, regardless of their performance right now. When you look at Eberflus, the previous head coach, and also the guy that he replaced at offensive coordinator before being bumped up again to interim HC, Shane Waldron. Eberflus and Waldron were they're kind, they're cordial, they're nice human beings, but they don't really bring that like thump, so to say. And when Thomas Brown steps to a mic, you can feel the juice behind his voice. He's a no nonsense, straightforward, hard hitting type of human being. I remember at his introductory press conference for being the head coach, not offensive coordinator. One of his quotes that stuck with me is he wants to build a violent football team. And like that's just kind of like the mantra he's around. He's direct, straightforward. He's not going to dance around any questions. Like last week when they got decimated by the 49ers, the first thing he said in the press conference, he didn't have to be asked about. He's like, we got our butts kicked. He didn't use butts. He used a different word. But and he's like, we got to get back to the drawing board, fix this stuff, and be the team that we know we're capable of being. So I'm paraphrasing there, but in the grand scheme of things, when it comes to Thomas Brown, I think some Bears fans are kind of like, oh, he's not capable of fixing the issues either, which I kind of think that he's just inherited a crap situation. He's going to try to make the best out of it, and there's not really any silver linings outside of Caleb Williams. I think the Bears are more so roster broken, or it's a player execution issue now that they've cycled from firing Waldron, the offensive coordinator, to firing Eberflus, and now they're on Brown, a head coach, and they're still experiencing the same issues. So I like the energy he brings. I think he galvanizes the group, but like the players are, I don't think the roster assembly is there for this team to succeed.
Have you had a chance to talk to Thomas Brown yet? And do you feel that he could be a candidate to take the job over full time next year?
I have not personally talked to him. I don't know if he's done any one-on-one interviews yet, to be completely honest with any media outlet. He's very, I'm going to keep using the straightforward, no nonsense human being. Like he is all football all the time. He shared a story with media recently in the last couple of weeks where he's like, I recently went on a weight loss journey and I couldn't lose weight. But then on the day I was named interim head coach until, or like when he was named offensive coordinator to the day he was named interim head coach, he went from 225 pounds down to like 203. So like he is in the facilities at Hallis Hall 24/7 grinding. So I don't think there's any media opportunities there for anyone to like really pick his brain one on one because I don't think that's on his mind right now. But as for the head coaching end of it, I think he should be a serious candidate. He's got, let's see, they're 4-9. They got 4 games left. They're going to be on the national stage Monday against Minnesota. And the last time they played the Vikings, it was a very close battle against one of the better teams in the NFL. Caleb Williams looked good. He threw for 340 and 2 touchdowns. They had that last-minute offensive blitz in the last 22 seconds of the game. He is going to have the opportunity. I think he has every opportunity to prove that he can lead this franchise. And to back it up and look at the NFL in a more broad sense, I think the trending with head coaches is that you need a strong personality at the front. When you look at some of the better teams, some of the best teams in the league, you look at the Lions. Dan Campbell is a fire-breathing dragon with undying confidence in his team, and they are the best team in the league, partially because of that belief and culture that he's instilled there, and that's from his personality. And then you go out west to, say, like the Los Angeles Chargers, and Jim Harbaugh, who I think should be the head coach in Chicago right now, but I think that would have never happened to begin with because, one, McCaskies don't like to spend money on head coaches. That's an established trend. And two, like there's a very tense relationship there between Jim Harbaugh when he was the head coach at Michigan and Kevin Warren, who is the president and CEO of the Bears now, but he was the commissioner of the Big Ten when Harbaugh was at Michigan, and they had those recruiting violation, that Connor
Yeah.
Stallion scandal stuff. So like, I think there's a lot of like tension back and forth there that probably wouldn't have worked. But from a personality perspective and someone that knows the Bears, because Jim Harbaugh played quarterback in Chicago, and he has that rah rah mentality, he would understand what is needed to take the Bears back to. I don't think they're ever going to get back to like the 1985 Bears, as the fan base always likes to talk about, but like get them to a point where they're consistent and they're not having, like these one-off blip seasons where they're like 12-4 with the best defense and they make a playoff run, but Cody Parkey has a double doink off the field goal post and, they're dead in the water. So it really comes down to like, I think you need to find someone that marries culture and personality and leadership with someone that has acumen and knowledge of how to scheme and add wrinkles throughout a season, and like that's what they're going to need to look for. And I think Brown can do that because he's already shown that with Caleb Williams as his quarterback. At certain points, I'd like to add, it's kind of been like a roller coaster ride of a show so far when it comes to the Caleb Williams experience. He'll have his highs, then he'll have his lows, and then he'll have his highs. But I think there's enough there to say like he has a fair shot at becoming the head coach of the Bears. Maybe not the best shot, but he is in the mix.
Okay. I have a viewer. His name is Robbie Schneider. He's from Buffalo, New York. He has his own podcast show called the 716 Sports Blizzard. He's a Bills fan, but he's a sports fan. And Robbie wanted me to ask you, Eli, will the Bears beat the Vikings on Monday Night Football?
I think it's going to be close again. I think a lot of national pundits probably look at this game and see what happened with the 49ers last week as, the Bears are falling apart and you might get another 38-13 type game. I don't think that's going to be the case just based on the fact that the Bears are going to walk into this game confident with the fuel behind Thomas Brown's personality, and Caleb Williams is not going to play scared because he's already had success against this team. Now, you have to like give credit where credit is due. Minnesota is a very, very, very good football team. And the one issue that I see coming in this game, if it does turn into a blowout, will be because the Bears don't get pressure on Sam Darnold. If you don't get pressure on Sam Darnold and he's allowed to sit there and slice and dice, he's got weapons for days on the outside, whether it's Justin Jefferson or Jordan Addison or T.J. Hawkinson or the running game with like Aaron Jones. They have so many different ways they can cook, and if they can generate pressure and like have a good performance on defense, it might not matter what Caleb Williams does on offense. He could throw for 350 and 3 touchdowns, and they still might lose like 49-28 or something like that.
Eli, what's the general mood like with the Chicago media and the fan base with the Bears right now?
Chris, I would tell you that I think the head coaching position for the Bears is the toughest position in football because it's the biggest media market that doesn't have 2 football teams. Like out in LA, you have the Rams and the Chargers, so that splits out there. In New York, you have the Giants and the Jets. In Chicago, it is the Bears. The Bears are the king. They're up here. The rest of the sports echelon is down here and to the left. For the people that can't see my hand gestures, like just imagine something way up in the sky, and then the rest of Chicago sports teams kind of like fiddling around in a puddle on the side.
Even over the Cubs? Even over the Cubs, in your opinion?
The Cubs are probably, I would say they're number 2. Everyone loves the Cubs. They're the lovable losers when they're bad, and then when they're good, the whole city rallies behind them. But like America is a football-driven country, in my opinion. Like you'll never see more turnout or more conversation than it does when it surrounds the football teams, and that is the case with the Chicago Bears too. And there's a lot of like apathy, like sports wide in Chicago, because there's not really a team that's playing well here right now. You know, the Cubs are slightly above 500, and the Ricketts won't spend money on superstar players. The White Sox are the White Sox. The Blackhawks are playing worse than they were at the end of last year. The Bulls are the Bulls. Like they can't
they're
stop
kind
anyone.
of they're in limbo. They're never bad enough to get a number 1 pick, but they're not good enough to make the playoffs. They just don't seem to have any identity from what I see.
Yeah, there's a lot of teams in Chicago that are kind of caught in what I like to call sports purgatory. Like you might like punch above your weight bracket a little bit and get a little bit above 500, but most of the times you're at 500, sub 500, and when it comes to playoff time, you really can't compete with the big dogs in the league. But when it comes to the Bears, I think people are just I think it's the point where they're starting to check out a little bit on the season. There were a lot of high hopes coming into the season. They went 7-10 last year with a worse quarterback. I don't want to rip on Justin Fields at all, but like Caleb Williams is just technically, mechanically, IQ wise, way better than him. He can run. He's more athletic. He has a stronger arm, but Caleb Williams is definitely the solution in Chicago. But I think at this point, it's like, please don't let him get sacked 8 times a game. Keep him healthy, build his confidence, build his football knowledge, and hopefully secure your draft position and find a lineman either on the defensive side of the ball that can rush the passer or get him a left tackle that can protect him.
I was going to get this to you later, Ali, but Eli, as for Caleb Williams, do you feel it was a mistake starting him this year, and maybe he should have sat on the bench for 4 or 5 games or 6 games like Drake May did with New England? Because look how well Drake May has done. I know the Patriots are terrible and they're awful, but Drake May is right up there with the rookie quarterbacks like Jaden Daniels and Bo Nix.
I think he should. If they had a veteran in place behind him, his backup
Okay.
is Tyson Bagent. I'd probably say sit him a little bit. But like I jotted down some notes here. Like he hasn't played horribly. Like he's still if he hits his averages where he sits right now, so he's averaging 211 pass yards a game, 1.23 pass touchdowns, about 31 rushing yards per game. If he hits these averages over the last 4 games, he's still going to have the most total yards of any quarterback in Bears history, which is a very low bar to clear. mind you. And like there's still a reasonable chance that he could, become say like the first 4,000-yard passer in team history. He just has to average 314 yards a game to hit that. So like I'm fine with him starting off the bat. I just don't think like the Bears have been the Bears like in their typical dysfunctional fashion over the last 13, 14, 15 years, like ever since really George McCaskey took over in 2011, I would say they've been pretty dysfunctional as an organization. And if you just maintain consistency from like a coaching structure standpoint, I think some of these, roller coaster moments where we get a little bit better in the middle, because at the end of the day, he's still a rookie. He's still learning. He's going to go through his rookie hurdles. A lot of people just were enamored with the performance that CJ Stroud had last year, and it was like, oh, that's the benchmark. You have to hit that now. And like now, no, back it up, hit the pause button, take a deep breath, go outside, touch some grass, and then come back, sit at the table, and realize that, everyone has to grow in the NFL, because when you jump from college, you're among, 18, 19, 21-year-old kids who are figuring out adult life. And then you hop into the NFL, and everyone is an android, an absolute killing machine, just about, who spends their entire day preparing to beat you in football, and they're grown men. And I think a lot of people don't really necessarily understand how big of a jump it is when you go from college to the pros, even if you're an SEC player, a Pac-12 player, a Big Ten player, so to say. So I'm perfectly fine with him starting. He's going to have to take his lumps, and he'll learn. He's got the IQ, he's got the brain to do it, and I'm very confident he'll figure it out.
I know in the old days they used to make the rookie quarterback sit on the bench for 1 or 2 years. Look at the Packers with Brett Favre, and then Aaron Rodgers was on the bench for a couple years, and then he took over, and then Jordan Love. So they've had success doing it the old school way. Wanted to ask you this too, Eli, since I got you on. What are your thoughts on Justin Fields' time in Chicago? And overall, do you feel Caleb Williams can be the franchise quarterback that this franchise needs and hasn't had in 4 decades?
Justin Fields, he doesn't want anyone to feel sorry for him. He doesn't want pity. He works hard. He busts his butt. He's an athletically gifted quarterback. He just the Bears failed him, in my opinion. Like they failed Mitch Trubisky. Like they failed. Both sides failed in the Jay Cutler situation. Neither side really put up a fight or a good fight to become a quality product there. But I would say the Bears and their constant turnover from GM to head coach with mismatching quarterbacks and coaching staffs. There's too much turmoil and chaos for him to appropriately develop. The thing with Justin Fields is he's kind of like a one-read quarterback. And in order to get him to a point where he would make multiple progressions, you would have to find a coach that is very well offensively versed in modern NFL, like passing strategies, what have you, so that he can simplify the process and make it easier for him to comprehend. And that has never happened in Chicago because of the constant turnover. Now, for Caleb Williams, emphatically, yes, he is Chicago's quarterback. Don't give it a second thought. I did a deep dive before the season where I compared, or like before the NFL draft where they selected Caleb Williams. I compared him and Justin Fields head to head, and I got to talk to another guy that covers the Bears pretty thoroughly, Robert Schmitz. And he did an exceptional like analytics dive on like Caleb Williams on like time to throw, rollouts, average air yards, how he throws, how he manipulates the different slot points of where he throws from. And a lot of people like to compare Caleb Williams to Patrick Mahomes because of the trickeration and the off-platform stuff that he does. But from what I've done, like dug into, he more resembles Aaron Rodgers, like a young Aaron Rodgers. And now Aaron Rodgers, like you just mentioned, got to sit for 3 to 4 years in Green Bay behind Brett Favre, another all-time great quarterback, regardless of what you want to say about his off-the-field antics. So he isn't going to get the benefit of the doubt of sitting in a concrete system that's going to stay in place the entire time, and he can make those jumps and leaps behind the scene. He's going to have to learn on the fly. And that kind of like transitions into a point that I really want to make about the Bears is they need to nail this next head coaching hire. They need someone that comes in and is a good offensive mind that has a concrete, solidified plan of like how they want to help Caleb Williams become a better quarterback than he already is. And then alternatively, too, ownership needs to be patient. I think something that is very beautiful about the Lions and how they've gotten to this point, being a 12-1 team, best team in the NFL by a lot of accounts, is that a lot of people are like, "Oh yeah, Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell redefined the culture and made them great." I would say it had started happening before that, when Sheila Ford Hamp took over the team. Like
Absolutely.
she had the grace, the intelligence to sit down and be like, these two are my guys. I'm gonna let them do what they need to do because they have a vision. And a lot of people made fun of the Lions early on for Campbell's, biting kneecaps comments,
Yeah.
that ilk. But she had the grace and patience to sit there and be like, no, we're going to let this play out. And for the Lions fans and NFL fans that pay attention to the NFC North, they know that it was not pretty early on. The Lions had a 3-13-1 season, and then they start the next season 1-6, but then it clicked, and they went 8-2. They're 9-8. They knocked the Packers out of the playoffs. They get all this momentum. They carry it over to the next season, 12-5, knock a couple of good teams out in the playoffs, and they're like a handful of plays in the Super Bowl. And then you have the product that they have this year, and they are a fire-breathing dragon that no one wants to play. And that's because it also goes back to Sheila Ford Ham being like, Dan Campbell is my man. Brad Holmes is my man. I'm going to give them the resources to do what they need to do. I believe in them. And that's what the McCaskies need to do with this next head coach that comes in. And hopefully Poles gets it right. They need to exactly same level of confidence in that pairing, and those two need to be in lockstep. And, it might take a 1 year figuring it out, and people can't get all fired up and be like, get rid of this guy, get rid of that guy. Like, no, you need to let this play out a little bit, because if let's run the hypothetical machine here. Let's say Detroit wins a Super Bowl, does the unimaginable. Ben Johnson accomplishes his goal, and the McCaskies pay him to come to Chicago. He's never been a head coach before. He's going to have some stuff to figure out, get his bearings underneath him. And he might need a year to be like, all right, this is the structure I need to put in place, and then we can grow from here. If there's bumps in the road next year that aren't like, magnum opus, oh, we're like a 12-win playoff team instantly, you need to let those happen and let that team grow and develop in a vision. And maybe, 2 to 3 years from now, you can have your Lions-esque ascent in the NFC North and be a really good football team.
If you look at some of these other teams, the Jets, the Browns, the Bears, you're right. It's constant change with GM, coaching staff, and it starts with ownership. The day Sheila Ford Hamp took over the Detroit Lions, changed that organization, and then she brought in Chris Spielman, brought in Brad Holmes, brought in Dan Campbell, and she lets them run the organization. Are the McCaskies willing to do that with the Bears going forward? And like you said, Eli, it's going to be critical to get the right coach and the right coaching staff in place for this team going forward.
Yeah, and George McCaskey has displayed that he can't do that over and over and over again. There's for the sports fans out there, Kevin Fishbane from the Athletic, fellow Northwestern alum. He breaks it down beautifully in like a 2-minute video. I think he did with, I forget who he was talking to. I think he was talking to Chase Daniels, one of the former Bears backup quarterbacks, who also played for the Lions at one point in time. And he does football breakdowns and whatnot. And he's like, "You guys want to hear the history?" And it's essentially like, all right, they bring in this GM, and then this GM doesn't have this head coach. It isn't his quarterback, so this head coach gets fired. Bring in another head coach. Well, this head coach doesn't have this quarterback, so they need to draft a quarterback. If they draft a quarterback, rookie year is garbage, so the head coach and GM get fired. They bring in a GM and a head coach, but that's not their quarterback. So they have a couple of down years with this quarterback and say, we need to draft another quarterback to extend our careers. And then, that quarterback has a crappy rookie season, whether it's like Justin Fields, for example. And then they get fired and a new regime comes in and they're stuck with an incumbent quarterback. And it's like a cyclical nature of the same destructive decisions. And George McCaskey needs someone in his ear to be like, hey, dude, stop. We need a general manager, we need a head coach, and we need a quarterback all coming together at the same time. and you need to exercise patience. It's something that the fans have been clamoring for since probably 2021 when they had an opportunity to do so. They had an opportunity. They moved on from Mitch Trubisky. They could have fired Ryan Pace and Matt Nagy, if I'm remembering right off the top of my head, but they kept him around for 1 year and let him draft Justin Fields. And then Justin Fields' rookie year was garbage. And then they got fired. And then Ryan Poles and Matt Eberflus come in with an incumbent quarterback. They have a 7-10 year, but they're like, you know what? We've got a savior in Caleb Williams. Bring him in. His rookie season has been garbage, not what Bears fans expected. Eberflus gets fired, the offensive coordinator gets fired, and then Caleb Williams is just going to be just like Justin Fields and Mitch Trubisky with a head coach that inherits him, and he's not their quarterback. But my caveat is that Caleb Williams is better than those two. I kind of feel like I'm talking in circles here, but like that's kind of the ongoing spiel with the Bears.
They're in limbo, and it's like the Dallas Cowboys too. By the way, the Dallas Cowboys every year they have their odd 12-5 seasons, but until Jerry Jones hires a GM and a coach that can run the franchise, they're not going to succeed. Got to ask you this, Eli, before we get back to Caleb Williams. I wanted to get your thoughts on Bill Belichick going to college football and going with North Carolina.
I I think he's getting up there in age, so like from my understanding of like people who are much older than me, you get into your twilight years and you want to enjoy time with your family and set up family to like have a better experience than you did. And I believe a part of his like contract stipulations with North Carolina is that his son takes over as head coach once he's done. He's the head coach in waiting. So like I understand it from that perspective. Something else that I think is going to be incredibly hilarious. I think it was Collar. I'm sorry if I mispronounced her name. She's with the Athletic too, but she tweeted yesterday or the day before, like Bill Belichick versus student journalists after a game is going to be pure cinema. Like I
Oh
can't
yeah.
wait to see Bill Belichick have to field questions from like a 19-year-old kid that's writing his first like football story ever, and he's just sitting there like, oh my god, what do I do? It's Bill Belichick. I'm gonna tune in to North Carolina football just to see that specifically, regardless of like the product that he puts on the field, because regardless of like whether you think it's going to be good or bad, it's going to be entertaining to see how it all plays out. As for like the legitimate like football end of things, like I'm interested to see how he handles the NIL end of things. He brought in, I think, Mike Lombardi is his name, to
Yes.
act as like GM of the football program. So we'll see how they meld together as personalities and business professionals on the football side of things. And then I want to see how that affects North Carolina's recruiting, what type of offense he's going to install, that type of stuff. Like, I think you could have legitimately like, hey HBO, let's go run Hard Knocks down in North Carolina and see how this football program develops. Don't know how you would make that happen, but I think it would make for great TV.
I was really shocked. I thought maybe the NFL he would go back to the NFL. Personally, I like this new side of him on media. I never thought I would see him be smiling and being happy, and he's great on media. So selfishly, I was hoping he would stay there, but I don't know. It's a 3-year contract, so this I think it's either going to go very well for him down there, or it could go very poorly for him as well. So it's going to be very interesting. And was there ever any talks between the Bears and Bill Belichick and his party?
From everyone that I listen to and everyone that I talk to, I don't know if there was ever anything legitimately going on in the background. I will say that those things typically happen. I think will happen at the end of the season for the Bears. I don't know if they've reached out to anyone in specific. I forget the person that tweeted it, but they were like, sources tell me that they have like 4 preliminary candidates, and it's the 4 candidates everyone expects them to go after. It's uh, Detroit's offensive coordinator Ben Johnson,
Yeah.
the Bills' offensive coordinator Joe Brady, former Tennessee Titans head coach Mike Vrabel was on there. I'm spacing on the fourth name off the top of my head, but like it's the
He would be
ones
a
you
good
would.
candidate Chicago. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there.
Oh no, you're fine. You're fine.
But to me, he would be a great candidate for the Bears because he's a blue collar type, hardworking, not no nonsense. So if they don't keep Thomas Brown, I would say Mike Vrabel would be a great candidate to be the next coach of the Bears, in my opinion.
I would agree with you too. I think the Bears need that personality, that strong focal point at the top of the team that can lead, in my opinion, because they've been directionless for a minute now. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Like if there's this situation in my mind, I brought it up with a couple of my coworkers at the station. I'm like, if I'm the Bears right now, I kind of like Ben Johnson would be nice, Mike Vrabel would be nice. Another situation that interests me is say maybe they don't want to pay Ben Johnson, but you go and get an Aaron Glenn to be your head coach, and then you take Thomas Brown, depending on how these last 4 games go, and you give him like a promotion of sorts, make him a permanent like associate head coach who's in charge of the offensive end. So Aaron Glenn can go hire the defensive side of the ball, and then Brown can further build out his offensive staff. Because I think from paying attention to the Bears over the last like 5-6 weeks as they've gone through the coaching murderer's row of situations, I think I liked Thomas Brown at offensive coordinator, and I think he has a little bit too much responsibility on his plate because those first couple of games, even though they've lost, they played Detroit very close. I think they should have beat Detroit, or at least tied the game and gone into overtime. That time mismanagement at the end of the game was abysmal. They take the Vikings to overtime. A blocked field goal cost them a win against the Packers. Like they've been snake bitten to a certain extent, but like Thomas Brown's offensive game plan has kept them in the game against divisional opponents in the best division in football. I don't know if you've seen the stat go around social media or anything, but the Lions, the Bears, and the Vikings, or excuse me, the Lions, the Packers, and the Vikings are 28-3 against non-divisional opponents that are, the Packers playing each other essentially. And the last time either of those 3 teams have lost outside of playing each other was like back in October. Like the Lions have 1 loss to the Bucks. I think the Packers have 1 loss to the Eagles, if I'm remembering right off the top of my head. I think the
Yes,
Eagles.
opening in Brazil.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Eagles beat the Packers 34-29.
And I forget what the Vikings loss was, but like it's an absolute juggernaut of a division, which also doesn't make things any easier for Chicago. Like there's no margin for error when the other 3 teams in your division are 9-3, 10-2, and 12-1. So
Wanted to ask you this as well before we get to Matt Uberflus. As for Caleb Williams, I want to get your opinion. What are some of his strengths that he brings to the position for Chicago, and what areas do you feel and the fan base feel and the team might feel that he needs to improve upon going into 2025?
so there's this. Caleb Williams plays his best when he's quick and decisive. And there's a lot of things that go into that equation. It's pass protection. It's him, being able to quickly progress through his reads and get to his desired throwing destination. There's balance on offense, being able to run the ball so that there's not a honing in from the defense on passing. I think Caleb Williams is three out of his 4 best performances this year. His average time to throw has been under, I want to say, 2.8 seconds. Like, I remember the Minnesota game when he threw for 340 and 2 touchdowns. He was at like, it was either 2.77 seconds time to throw or like 2.56. They were 2 of his quicker games on the year. And if I remember right, I think the 4 touchdown game against the Jaguars in London, I think he might have been at like 275 or something like that. So like when pass protection marries decisiveness from Caleb Williams, he is a top 8 quarterback in this league. So like he needs to continue to develop his knowledge of the playbook, which I don't know how much that helps if you get rid of Thomas Brown at the end of the year because a new system's going to come in or a new person with a new system's going to come in. He's going to have to relearn everything again. Um, Knowledge of the playbook helps with decisiveness. The Bears need to build in the trenches. They need a left tackle. They need a center. They need a guard. I think the only people on their offensive line that are worth keeping around at this point are Darnell Wright at right tackle and Tevin Jenkins, who is their left guard. I think that's their two best players on the line. Everyone else, you can jettison out the airlock and then, maybe spend your first round pick on a guy like Will Campbell out of like LSU to like protect Caleb's back end. Maybe you go out and get a veteran guard that can provide some leadership. Kind of like I keep going back to the Lions, but they're such a great franchise to look toward when it comes to like building a successful team. Go out, spend a little money, and get a guy like Kevin Zeitler. I would have to look at the free agency class and who's available, but like bring a guy in that's had established success on a good football team that can help meld the unit together. Because like when you look at Caleb Williams, he doesn't turn the ball over either. He's very good at the turnover end of things, not making those costly mistakes or those costly plays. I forget how many straight passes he has right now without an interception, but it's an NFL rookie record. He passed that against the Cardinals, and he hasn't thrown a pick since, if I remember right off the top of my head. He's had a couple of instances where a DB has dropped a ball that should have been an interception, but like he's got to be north of like 300 straight passes without a pick somewhere along there. I would have to look it up. Someone would have to correct me. I don't know the numbers straight off the top of my head. But besides that, learning when to not take a sack too is probably something else he needs to look at because there was, I think, 4 straight third downs against San Francisco where he took a sack, and those you can't do that in the NFL. You need to find a way to manipulate space in the pocket, to kick a pass that skips in front of a receiver if he's covered, or just roll out outside of the tackle box and then just heave a mortar round out of bounds to save your team a few yards in the field of position game. But those are probably some things he needs to work on, and I think he will he is more than likely to accomplish those tasks in the future because he's the type of human being that has the work ethic, he has the IQ, he has the natural talent to continue to level up in the NFL.
Overall, what's his mobility like? And Eli, watching him this year play live too, do you find he has happy feet? Sometimes young quarterbacks have happy feet and tunnel vision where he just looking at one receiver and not checking down and stuff like that.
He does have like it's hard to like quantify Caleb Williams and his like mobility because like it kind of plays into like his God given talent and how unusual or how good of a quarterback he can become. So like he has this like sixth sense of knowing when pressure will come and he'll like shuffle, juke, pivot in the pocket to like generate enough space to either get like a throw off sometimes and then or roll out and try to find a throw that way. He's not someone that looks to run the ball. Like he wants to use his legs to create more time to throw. And he kind of marries that at his best with this like he has this like his body is kind of like a rubber band a little bit because like you see him make throws and you're like no way on planet Earth should that throw have had that much zip or that much accuracy or that much spin when he's literally like square like a jump shot, but he just like flicks his wrist and he's like leaning to his right and he puts it through a dinner plate size window. Like there's no one in the NFL that really does it like that. Well, Patrick Mahomes does, but he has this weird knack and ability and skill to like throw from untraditional platforms. So like I'm not really too concerned about his feet as much as it is mental processing and having like kind of like a checklist of like where you want to go with the ball and like how much time you have to get it there. Kind of like operating within a system because he can do the 3-step drop just fine, a 1.5 step drop and rip it, and then he can like move around and make throws regardless of what his base structure is and throw it accurately. So I'm not too worried about his feet, but that's a few things that I look at from that end of thing.
Is he more comfortable being under center, or do you feel he's more useful being in the shotgun formation?
Well, I would say he's definitely more used to the shotgun formation. That's kind of like what goes back to his USC experience with like Lincoln Riley. In the NFL, like I would say that's kind of what
Guys,
defines success. Go ahead. Go ahead.
that was just a Wi-Fi issue on my part. I apologize for that.
Oh, you're fine. You're fine. But like I think in terms of
It
like
happens.
hyper, yeah, technology is great until it doesn't cooperate with you. But in terms of like Caleb being under center, I think that comes with how you got to find success in the league nowadays. Because like a recent trend with the football is like the too high safety shell to kind of combat these explosive passing attacks, and it's been pretty effective. Like teams are not throwing the ball as well as they have in recent years because of like a too high safety shell. And how you beat a too high safety shell is getting the quarterback under center and running the ball. So you draw one of those safeties down into the box, and then you can hit them with play action, or you can call a hot, an audible, drop back into the shotgun and put some pressure on the defense. But in order to get there first, you got to be comfortable operating under center and making reads from there. And it really gets down to like the nuance of like playing quarterback right there, because like when you're used to playing in the shotgun, you kind of have, you're a couple steps further back behind the line. You can scan and see things more easily. Like you have a wider range of view. You can see how players move. When you're up under the center, you've got bodies all around you. You're a little bit lower to the ground. Maybe you won't notice a corner or a DB or a linebacker moving in a certain way, and you got to make reads at a different angle. So like it's a nuanced thing that he's going to have to like learn, and like he'll probably add it to his game. And if you bring in like a guy like Ben Johnson, he's going to have to, because that's how he employs Jared Goff. Is the most lethal thing about like the Lions passing attack is them throwing play action out of like a heavy personnel set with like two tight ends. Like he's making reads at the line. If there's a blitz, he's going to hot hot or alert alert, and then someone is whether it's like a dig route to like Amon-Ra St. Brown or like Sam Laporte, he's going to find that little intermediate area on like a play action handoff and a 5-step drop and just rip a rocket, and first down, the drive keeps on going. So playing under center will definitely be a part of the evolution of Caleb Williams, and something he'll need to get more comfortable with as time goes on.
Wanted to ask you this, Eli. I know it's been a tough season, 4-9 for the Bears, but I feel that the game against Washington kind of sent this team into a downward spiral. That Hail Mary pass where it just that should not have ever happened, and I just feel the Bears have just not been competitive since that loss.
It's there needs to be a case study done on that game, the effect that it's had on this team. I I will still stick to my guns and say I think it's more of like a player roster construction type issue, and um, that Hail Mary definitely took a lot of air out of their sails. I'll say that. Like it's tough when you don't have strong leadership in front of the team to recover from a moment like that. But I want to like highlight the reason they were in that situation in the first place. Um, they did not score their first touchdown on that game until like 40 some seconds left in the third quarter. It was a 50-yard touchdown run by DeAndre Swift. He broke one tackle and shot up the left sideline, and that made the game 12-7. And then Caleb Williams leads a last-minute drive where they score with 25 seconds left and take a 3-point lead. If they don't go completely silent on offense, the first how many minutes? Like the first 44 minutes of the game, you add a field goal here or a field goal there, like all of a sudden it's like a 6 or a 7 point game at the end of the game, or like a 9 point game maybe, and that Hail Mary doesn't even happen because of the score at the time. And a slow start has been something that's characteristic of the Bears all season. Like I have like a notebook where I wrote it down after the 49ers game. The Bears have been outscored 63-13 in the first quarter. That's
Wow.
that minus 50 point differential is tied for worst in football with the Dallas Cowboys. So if you can't get out of the gates and put some pressure on the other team, you're just creating problems from yourself at the end of the day. So systematically, structurally, however they do things, they were kind of setting themselves up for failure with all these slow starts. And when you have these slow starts, it breeds situations like that Hail Mary, where, you take, it's kind of like a boxing match a little bit. You're just taking the punches, eating the punches, eating the punches, and you're hoping that they get a little overconfident so you can work your way back in the fight. But then, you're not perfect, so you're going to make a mistake, and they're going to hit you with like a really hard hook to the jaw. And like that's what the Hail Mary was to this team. And then that kind of sends them spiraling on the path where they fire Waldron as their offensive coordinator. Eberflus gets knocked out, and there's this turnover and inconsistency at the top, and it seems, well, the season's over for them at this point. We're systematically, mathematically eliminated from the playoffs. So, like, the Hail Mary was just kind of like that, the fuse lights, and then it reached the dynamite and blew everything apart to really reveal how bad it is in Chicago.
Which loss do you find? I know they're both bad, but which one do you find worse? The Washington Hail Mary loss or the Detroit loss where they had a chance to kick a field goal and tie it and send it to overtime or even possibly upset the Lions in that Thanksgiving Day game?
I would say the Lions loss. When the Hail Mary happened, obviously it's super deflating, but at that point they were 4-3. The season is still very much salvageable. You can still go win 10 games at that point if things fall your way. I think the Detroit loss was kind of like the nail in the coffin for all the crazy things that have happened to the Bears this year. It's kind of it was the nail in the coffin for Matt Eberflus. Bang, see you later, buddy. You're out of here. All of his late game mismanagement issues kind of came to a headway there, and that basically sums it up really for me. The Lions' loss was like kind of like the magnum opus of the issues faced from the coaching staff end of things and how they haven't really cohesively come together as a group.
Do you feel Eberflus should have been fired after 2026 season? And do you feel the Bears waited too long to make this change, especially after the Thanksgiving Day loss to Detroit?
See, if you were to go back in time and talk to like Eli at the end of like the 2023 season, when they were 7-10, and at the time I looked at Eberflus and I was like, there's a couple of games at the end of that 7-10 season where they won. They finished 5-3 to end the year, and it was a Monday night football game against Minnesota. That was an absolute rock fight. I think they beat Minnesota like 12-10, and it was on all field goals. And the very last drive of the game, they had a game-winning field goal set up by like I believe it was a Justin Fields to DJ Moore completion that was like 30 to 40 yards, put them on the plus side of the field. Cairo Santos kicks the field goal, and they finally get that like late game win, despite them not really having any playoff aspirations at the time. That told me that Matt Eberflus still had the locker room at the time. The players still play hard for him. They believe in him. So going to that offseason, I was fine with Eberflus remaining the head coach. Hindsight being 2020, and knowing the recent like situation of the Bears, general manager, head coach, quarterback inconsistencies, it probably would have been better to just jettison Eberflus at the time and find a more verbally straightforward head coach. I think you could also say that maybe Shane Waldron shouldn't have been the hire at offensive coordinator because the original struggles at the beginning of the year, they had a lot of struggles on offense, getting things rolling that way. Maybe you could say, Thomas Brown should have been the offensive coordinator from the get-go. If Thomas Brown is the offensive coordinator from the get-go, maybe Eberflus still has his job right now because Eberflus was always a defensive-minded head coach. The offense was not his baby. The defense was. And up until recently, the defense has been the bedrock of this team and the reason they won games. So I think I like the urgency of fire, or I shouldn't say that. I should say that it's nice to see that they're changing their ways a little bit and adding urgency because like old Bears administrations would have been like, just wait till the end of the year to get rid of them and let it all play out. But they're like, no, we have a golden opportunity right now because we have a quarterback that we've never had in the history of our franchise. We've never had a guy this talented under center, so we need to do it differently. Whether that came from McCaskey or Kevin Warren or Ryan Poles, I'm not sure, but it has to be signed off, up the totem pole. So like, I'm fine. No one should be fine with like their football team, going through this coaching malpractice stuff in the middle of the season. But like, I'm fine with how it played out. I think Eberflus should have had the opportunity, rightfully so, to see how this played out. And there are several other situations where you can play the what-if game and where it supposedly turns out better. Whether it's from a coaching staff perspective and you have Brown at offensive coordinator, or Green Bay doesn't block that field goal and they beat the Packers. Tyreek Stevenson pays attention on that Hail Mary instead of jawing with fans.
Chance.
Eberflus calls a timeout to reset themselves at the end of the Detroit game. They kick a field goal, go to overtime, see how that goes. Caleb Williams doesn't eat 2 sacks on the first offensive drive of overtime against the Vikings. They drive down, hit a field goal. Maybe they tie it up. It goes back and forth. Who knows? There's a lot of what ifs you can play, but at the end of the day, I think it was fine keeping Eberflus going into the season. I think he had the opportunity to prove that he could put it all together, and it just didn't happen. Now we have what we have.
Do you see Matt Eberflus being a head coach National Football League going into next year, the year after? Or do you see him going back into a defensive coordinator's position?
I think he's a defensive coordinator, 100%. That's a part of like the coaching equation in football, especially the NFL level. Like you'll get guys that are really good at one specific point of management, like as a defensive coordinator, as an offensive coordinator. Like if Ben Johnson leaves, I'm interested to see how he handles being a head coach because he is arguably the best offensive coordinator in football, and he's in a really good situation in Detroit. And he already proved last offseason, he's like, why would I leave a situation this good when I'm already fantastic at my job and no one's got a knife to my throat? So I think Eberflus is a good defensive coordinator. I think he'll land somewhere else eventually, probably this offseason. I don't know where there'll be openings, but I'm sure there'll be staffs that are looking for a guy with his experience. I'm sure that they won't discredit the product that he was able to put together with the Bears defense over the last couple of years. Because like last year, the Bears defense, second best rush defense in the football. I forget. I'm pretty sure they were top 3 in interceptions in their DB group. Like he can coach up a defense and give you a real quality product on that side of the ball if he has like a system, GM, a front office that can give him the talent to work with. So I would look to see if not a defensive coordinator, he's going to be like a positions group coach, and then he'll work his way back up to DC. But I don't think he's going to get another opportunity as like a head coach in the NFL. And I think he'll realize that. That's my observation, purely on my own opinion, and I think he'll be fine being a defensive coordinator in the future.
And just quick thoughts on Kevin Warren. Is he the man to lead this team going forward?
Kevin Warren is in a pot of the jury's out on Kevin Warren right now because like his job as president and CEO of the Bears isn't necessarily the football product on the field. It's them figuring out the stadium situation that they're currently in. And it's been as messy as the football team is, in my opinion. They're 1 month we're going to build in Arlington Heights outside of the city and move the Bears out of Chicago. And then the next, they're like, no, we're committed to staying along the lakefront. We're going to figure it out here. Meanwhile, the governor of Illinois, J.B. Pritzker, has been like, it is a straight non-starter, any public money to pay for a private stadium. I don't know why I'm flipping back and forth. There we go.
Technology,
man, technology. But like the governor of Illinois has been like, there will be no public funding for a privately owned football stadium in Chicago, and the going rate for a stadium in Chicago is going to be like $4.5 billion, $5 billion.
Wow.
And the latest proposal they put forward, they had like 2.3 billion in private funding, something like that. So like there's like a 45% gap of them figuring that out somehow. I don't know if it's like a naming rights deal with a company, kind of like how SoFi happened, because SoFi was completely privately funded, and that was like I want to say it was like a $5.1 billion stadium build, and they made it completely privately funded. No public money was added to that, but and then like out in Arlington Heights, they still got to resolve the property tax situation they have with 3 local school districts. Like they have like an issue over their annual property tax evaluation of how much they would have to pay on a yearly basis. That just passed. So in the village of Arlington Heights, the Board of Trustees just tentatively approved a deal that now has to go to the Bears and the school districts to sign, where it drops the annual property tax number from like, I want to say it was 9.6 to like 3.8 million. Like got it into like a ballpark of where the Bears and the school districts were comfortable, because they pre-negotiated the deal and submitted it to the Board of Trustees in Arlington Heights. So it looks like there's a possibility that it might be moving towards Arlington Heights a little bit, but Kevin Warren has still said that he wants to build in Chicago along the lakefront. So it's just this discombobulated situation where maybe the Bears are in Chicago, maybe they're in Arlington Heights, maybe neither develops and they're stuck with Soldier Field. No one really knows. And it's kind of a mirror situation of the football product on the field with the Bears, and how they can't get a GM and a head coach and a quarterback all on the same page. So just dysfunction organization wide, even though, you know, there's a possibility, they hit a home run and everything works out in the end, but that just hasn't been Chicago football, no matter the topic, over the last 15 years or so.
Any chance they could knock down Soldier Field, which is only 20 years old? It's 20 years old. They rebuild it from scratch. Any chance they could knock that stadium down completely? Because I don't think anyone likes it, and just play somewhere temporarily for 2 or 3 years until they can get a new stadium on that site.
There's a lot of legal roadblocks when it comes to how Soldier Field is set up.
Okay.
It's a national landmark for starters, and it's surrounded by a lot of like state-owned land, so they're kind of landlocked in expansion. In order for them to expand, they would have to like build the property onto like their parking lots that they own in the area, and also like they've got to spend. I'd have to pull up the latest proposal, but in order to get a new stadium, upgrade a stadium there, they would have to significantly upgrade like the accessibility of the area in terms of like public pedways and like transportation and stuff. And that was like $1 billion in expenses they would have to pay for, in terms of just modifying the area around Soldier Field. So like there's a lot of obstacles there. But in terms of like knocking it down, I don't think it would ever happen, just based on its like national landmark status. It's protected pretty well.
And finally, Eli, before we wrap this up, what are your NFL predictions for both the NFC and the AFC playoffs? And who should be the NFL MVP this year, Josh Allen or the Philadelphia Eagles' Saquon Barkley? And to me, I know the awards become a quarterback award, but I really think Saquon Barkley is having a special year. And I'm an Eagles fan, so maybe I'm biased, but I feel Barkley should be the first running back since Adrian Peterson to win the MVP. I wanted to get your thoughts on that.
So it's interesting, because like I also like to root for a non-quarterback MVP, because of just how rare it is nowadays, with it being basically a quarterback-centric award. Let me give you this scenario. If Saquon Barkley breaks Eric Dickerson's yards from scrimmage record, check. If Josh Allen and the Bills falter in the last 4 weeks of the season, lose to the Lions, I don't know what the rest of their schedule is, and drop 3 or 4, be like the 3-4 seed in the AFC, and the Eagles continue to win, say they finish 15-2, 14-3, something like that. I think it's a much fairer argument too. I so if you're asking me to stake my flag on one player or another, I will go with Saquon Barkley right now, just from the perspective of I think he's having a great season, but it's also very hard to argue against the product of Josh Allen and what he is
Yep.
doing. I mean, just last week, even though they somehow lost against the Rams, 3 passing
Yeah.
touchdowns, 3 rushing touchdowns. It's never been
Touchdowns.
done in NFL history.
That's right.
He is a mobile quarterback Godzilla when he's out on the football field. He just brings in absolute terror on opposing defenses. He's bigger than most linebackers. He's as mobile as a running back, and he has an artillery cannon for an arm. So it's. I do not envy any defensive coordinator that has to go out there and be like, all right, we're playing the Bills this week. And they're probably not going to get much sleep at night trying to game plan against a guy like Allen.
Just quick thoughts on there's a couple of big games this week. The Bills Lions at 4:25 and then the Eagles Steelers at 4:25 at Lincoln Financial Field.
Eagles Steelers is really interesting to me. Russell Wilson has played well enough for the Steelers to be a team that has realistic Super Bowl aspirations, in my opinion. A lot of people grilled Mike Tomlin a little bit for taking Justin Fields out at the beginning of the year when they were like 4-2 and playing well. But Tomlin is Mike Tomlin. He's one of the best coaches in football. He knows his team. And looking back at it now, he knew that like they were playing good, but with the condition that Russell Wilson's in, they're like, we can take a step forward with this. And they played great ever since. If the Steelers come out and beat the Eagles, I think that makes Detroit's Super Bowl aspirations a lot more manageable because I view Philly as the one team in the NFC that can at least stylistically match up with the Lions. The Lions always, I would say the one bane for Lions' existence is playing a team with a mobile-ish quarterback at the very least. Jalen Hurts is that type of dude. Saquon Barkley is the best running back in football. They have a good run defense, so like, but you're still going to get tested there. They have weapons on the outside that can beat man coverage, and Detroit loves to live and die by their man coverage. Like, I don't know how comfortable they should feel with Carlton Davis and Terrion Arnold going man to man with A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith. There's a lot of matchups they can play off of there. As for like the Lions Bills game, that is what everyone bills it to be. No pun intended. It's a Super Bowl, a potential Super Bowl matchup. It's I would say a Super Bowl matchup that a lot of people around America would love to see because both teams are very well liked in the national media spotlight. Neither team has won a Super Bowl, so like there's the feel good nature of that. That being said, I think the Lions, when you look at them from like a stylistic standpoint, you kind of compare it to like what happened with the Bills and Rams last week. The Lions can exploit everything that the Rams did, but they just have better personnel and they're better equipped to do it. So like they're probably going to put up points on the Bills defense. But alternatively speaking, everything I just said about Josh Allen and how Detroit hates facing mobile quarterbacks, he's probably going to put up numbers too. Because I remember the most lopsided Lions game I can think of was in Baltimore, I think last year, and they lost like 36-7 to like Baltimore, and it was a game where Lamar Jackson went nuts. He had like 344 yards and like 5 touchdowns, and Baltimore's defense got Jared Goff off his base and made him throw turbo pumpkins the entire game, turn the ball over a couple times. And that's essentially what we got to do with Detroit. That's the one chink in their armor. If they're balanced and throwing play action pass and running the ball at will, you can't really stop them. But if you can manage the run game and force the game into Goff's hands, and then in turn get pressure on Goff and make him move around, he's going to throw wobblers here and there. And they're going to be balls that can be turned over, picked off, what have you. And that's kind of like how you got to attack Detroit and hope you get to that point. Because if you don't get to that point, you might be looking at a day where they hang 52 points on you, and you're like, wow, what just happened? But I'm gonna take the Eagles over the Steelers. I just think Philadelphia is a step ahead of Pittsburgh in terms of talent and where they're at as a roster. And then Detroit's tough. Detroit and Buffalo's tough. The game's in Detroit. So I'll go with the Lions on home field advantage. It should be really close though. I don't really feel comfortable picking either team in that matchup because we know what both sides are capable of. But um, Ford Field will be rocking for Detroit. It's not going to be a snowball like it would be in Buffalo, playing to their advantage. So their offense should hum. And let's say I'll say 41 to 38 Lions, and then for Eagles Steelers, I'll go 31-24 Eagles.
I've got Buffalo 43-40 over Detroit, which is 83 points. And then I have the Eagles winning 27-17. But I want to see the Eagles get off to a better start in the first quarter.
Mm-hmm.
They've only scored 3 points in the first quarter this season. I know they have a great running game and their defense is good. But when you're going to the playoffs, you're going to be playing better teams. And if your defense has a bad start or a bad day and that passing game can't get going, that's my biggest concern with the Eagles right now is a passing game. They have the receivers. Jalen Hurts is got to stop being gun shy. I think he's afraid to throw interceptions, and I think they need to let him go back to what he was in 2022, where he could pass the ball and also run the ball as well.
Yeah, that's one thing that's maybe you worry a little bit about the Eagles because you've been hearing the rumblings of how the pass game hasn't been that cohesive, and there's arguments going on in the background with like Hurts and like AJ Brown and whatnot. But like at the end of the day, you're 11-2 with the greatest running back in football, and you have the ability to get that passing game going. You have every opportunity to. So I don't see a world where this isn't the Eagles team that completely collapsed last year. I think they're better than that. I think they're more than capable of figuring it out. And at the very least, they're going to be like, we cannot devolve how we did a year ago. So it'll be. There's a lot of good football on this weekend. I'm excited to watch.
Same here, Eli, and we're going to wrap this up. Just quick thoughts on former Chicago Cubs legend Ryan Sandberg's cancer returning, and where can my audience again follow you on social media and the best way of contacting you?
So Rhino, Rhino is when you look at like the echelon of like great Chicago athletes. You talk about like Michael Jordan is at the top, obviously, but then you have guys like Walter Payton and Ernie Banks and Ryan Sandberg and Patrick Kane. Ryan Sandberg, in terms of quality of character, is a phenomenal human being. One of the reporters at my station, his name is Mike Lowe, who is also a Northwestern alum. Gonna plug that as often as possible. Mike Lowe was recently diagnosed with prostate cancer, and Ryan Sandberg reached out and had a conversation with him, and they did like a news package on dealing with cancer and how they've gone about the fight and encouraging each other and whatnot. And like that's just the type of human being that Ryan Sandberg is. I've seen stories combing social media where one guy was like, "Oh, I used to work at the guest store on Lake Michigan Ave, where all the tourists shop and stuff." And Ryan Sandberg was in there one day with his daughter, back to school shopping. And he's like, "Mr. Sandberg, my older brother is the biggest Cubs fan ever. He works across the street. Would you go say hi to him?" Instantly, just went across the street. Yeah, of course, I'd love to talk to him. And we went over there and spent like 15, 20 minutes, took pictures, relived some Cubs memories just because a random stranger on the street was like, "Yo, my brother really is into Cubs baseball," and like that's what he is to the Cubs fan base. He's like the most beloved figure, I would say, in Cubs history. I'm not from the city. I don't have like ingrained in-depth knowledge, but that's the feel I get from him. He is an A-plus guy, and the entire city is rooting for him to beat cancer after it, relapsed a little bit for him. As for me, you can find me anywhere on the three most active social media sites I'm on are Twitter, or as it is formerly known. I'm always going to call it Twitter, X, Threads, and I'm also on Blue Sky. And my handle on all three is at the Pen of Eli, kind of like the Book of Eli with like Denzel Washington and whatnot. To play on those words, I know it's dorky, whatever. Just a little like caveat to like try to differentiate myself in the space. But at the Pin of Eli on Twitter, Threads, or Blue Sky. That's where all of my Chicago sports content goes, and where you can reach me if you want to talk shop about anything.
Well, Eli, I want to say thank you so much today for coming back on our show a second time, giving us an hour of your time and talking Chicago Bears football with us as well. I want to wish you continued success in your career, and I want to wish you and your family a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and look forward to having you back on my show again some point in 2025 as well.
Of course, anytime, Chris. Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays to you and your family as well. Everyone listening, likewise as well. Hopefully, you have a good holiday season with the loved ones. You know, let's take in this great NFL season we're having. We have a lot of great storylines, whether it's the Lions, whether it's the Bills, whether it's the Eagles, whether it's the Steelers. You know, take your seatbelt, buckle in, and let's see how it all unfolds. I'm always glad to talk about it.
Absolutely, and we still got college football going on too for a little while yet as well.
Of course, of course.
Who's your pick to win the national championship before I wrap this up?
I'm trying to think. I don't want to pick like Ohio State or anything like that. My gut would probably Texas or Georgia. One of those two teams. They just feel like the most talented, most that have the most depth and are the most battle tested. But that won't stop me for rooting for a team like Indiana, who is never in this situation. Like if I'm always for the underdog story. So if I'm following that route, like yeah, let's have Indiana win it all. Screw it, like pure chaos. But from a sensible standpoint, it's probably going to be Georgia or Texas if I had to pick a champion that's realistic. So go Dogs, Bulldogs. I'll go with Georgia to win it all.
As long as it's not Ohio State, I'm okay with it. As long as it's not Ohio State, I'm a Michigan fan, so.
Yeah. Did you see that stuff they were talking about earlier on how the AD is like their new strategy is going to de-emphasize the game between Michigan and Ohio State? I was like, oh,
Can't do that. You can't do that.
no, that's the biggest college football game
No.
in the country, buddy. Jim Harbaugh really did some damage before he left. That's all I got to say there to the psychological mentality of that college football program down south. So
Definitely. But hey, Eli, again, I want to say thank you so much for coming on here. And you have an open invite to come back on again in the future as well.
of course, always glad to, Chris. Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, the whole 9 yards.
Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, Eli, and good luck to your Bears on Monday night against the Vikings.
Thank you, Chris. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. All right, guys, that was Eli Ong from WGN News in Chicago. Eli came on today to speak to us about the 2024 Chicago Bears, rookie quarterback Caleb Williams, and the firing of head coach Matt Uberflus, and we talked about their intern head coach in Thomas Brown as well. Before we wrap up this show, guys, the next live with CDP Sports and Entertainment Talk Show, sponsored by BarryCollin.com and Wellington Brewery.ca here in Guelph is going to be Friday, December 13th at 9:30 p.m. Eastern with special guest Steve Bermel, the Buffalo Bandits TV and radio analyst. Steve and I are going to break down the Bandits opening win against Rochester 15-7, and we're going to talk about the Bandits Friday night game against the Ottawa Black Bears, which takes place at 7 o'clock in Ottawa at the Canadian Tire Center. So hopefully Steve and I will be able to talk about a second Bandits win to the 24-25 season. And I was at Bandit night at the KeyBank Center the other night, Monday night in Buffalo, for the Red Wings Sabres game. The Red Wings won 6-5 in a shootout. Larkins won the game in overtime for Detroit on the shootout winner. Andrew Kopp had 2 goals. but the members of the Buffalo Bandits were there, the Bandettes were there, and the National League, or the National Lacrosse League trophies were there as well. So if you've never been to a National Lacrosse League game, I I would highly recommend going to a game at the Toronto Rock, at the arena in Mississauga. They're playing in for 1 year, or go down to the KeyBank Center in Buffalo, bandits.com, or check out the National Lacrosse League's website at nll.com as well. Before we wrap this show up, guys, I also have a little video here I'm going to play, and I want to say thank you to everyone for subscribing and watching my YouTube channel. Good morning. This is Chris Pomay, radio host of Live with CDP Sports and Entertainment Talk Show, the Argo Bounce Live Audio Show, and the Small Talk Podcast. I want to say thank you to now my 501 subscribers on my YouTube channel. It took me a number of years, but I finally have reached over 500 subscribers. And I want to say thank you to all my subscribers. And also thank you to everyone that are viewing my YouTube channel. 285,000 plus views as well. So my media career, my radio show, and my two other shows called the Argo Bounce Live Audio Show with Nick Small and the Small Talk Podcast with my co-host Marlene Sharp. So if you already haven't subscribed and hit the like notification to my YouTube channel, type in Chris Pomay or Live with CDP Talk Show, and remember to hit that subscribe. And again, thank you to everyone for your support of my show on my YouTube channel. And my next goal now is to get to 600 subscribers. So thank you, everybody, for subscribing and watching my YouTube channel. Talk to you soon. And I really appreciate all the support on my YouTube channel as well. And if you haven't subscribed, they've been playing with CDP Sports Entertainment Talk Show. Speaking of sponsors, guys, check out Wellington Brewery, founded in 1985 at 950 Woodlawn Road West in Guelph, Ontario. Check out their website, wellingtonbrewery.ca, telephone number 519-837-2337. Try a Wellion, and please remember to drink responsibly. And at Wellington Brewery, celebrate today with your favorite lagers. Indulge with our Christmas lager pack, or pick up a classic Hellas 6-pack and celebrate today. Again, try a Wellion, and please drink responsibly. And Wellington Brewery is celebrating their 40th year coming up here in 2025. Again, founded in 1985 here in Guelph, Ontario. And again, they're located at 950 Woodlawn Road West in Guelph, Ontario, right across from my other sponsor, Barry Cullen Chevrolet dealership at 905 Woodlawn Road West in the Guelph Auto Mall. Check out barrycullen.com for the newest selection of new and pre-owned GM vehicles. Give them a call at 519-824-0210. Tell them Chris Pomay sent you, or you can email the dealership at info@barrycullen.com. Also, guys, if you're looking to adopt a pet, check out the Cambridge and District Humane Society, 1650 Dunbar Road in Cambridge, Ontario. Telephone number 519-623-7722, extension 0, or visit their website at cambridgehumanesociety.org. That's cambridgehumanesociety.org. All the animals that are up for adoption, their profiles are on their website. If you're looking to volunteer there in the new year, you can fill out a volunteer application through there. And they're also doing a monthly 50-50 draw. You can get tickets through their website and click events. And just to also let you guys know, I'm still selling 2025 Cambridge District Humane Society calendars for $10 cash only, or you can PayPal me at cpomay19@gmail.com. PayPal cpomay19@gmail.com, and all the money goes to the Cambridge District Humane Society, and they did a great job on the calendars. And so far, I have sold 26 calendars and raised $260 for the Cambridge District Humane Society as well. And a shout out to Ortman's from Crossbody Pro Wrestling, who put on a card the other night in Cambridge. And Ben and Crossbody Pro Wrestling raised over $2,000 for the Cambridge District Humane Society. So a shout out to Ben Ortman's as well. And I also want to do a couple more shout outs before we wrap up this show to the Guelph Community Health Center. They do amazing work in this city. So check out Guelph CHC, our community health center. They do amazing work. And also, guys, it's Christmas time, and right now the food banks across Canada are really hurting from the demand. And I'm in the Gulf area, so if you are in the Gulf area and are able to donate some food this year, especially at Christmas time, check out the check out the Guelph Food Bank, and their website is guelphfoodbank.ca, and their telephone number is 519-767-1380. So please consider helping out the Guelph Food Bank at this time of the year. And also, the Salvation Army could use your help as well. In the States, it's salvationarmy.com. And here in Canada, it's salvationarmy.ca as well. Also, guys, check out Savaki Flame here in Guelph. It's a small family business, and they're located just on Speedville Avenue. Savaki Flame, excellent breakfast. Monday to Friday, they have $7.99 breakfasts, and they have lunch and dinner, and they're really good at Savaki Flame here in Guelph. Live with CDP Sports and Entertainment Talk Show again is live streamed on these platforms: YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, LinkedIn, and now available on Instagram. And make sure you hit that follow notification. My website is beacons.ai/Chris D. Pomay. All my work and all my social media sites are on that site as well. Again, Live with CDP Sports and Entertainment Talk Show is sponsored by Barry Cullen Chevrolet dealership here in Guelph at 905 Woodlawn Road West in the Guelph Automall. And speaking of Barry Cullen Chevrolet, it's your go-to service center this winter. With winter coming, colder temperatures coming, they can affect your battery. Go to Barry Cullen Chevrolet right now for a no charge. That's right, a no charge battery test, and they'll throw in a $20 instant rebate on a new AC Delco 12-volt battery. So be on the safe side this winter. Get your battery checked at Barry Cullen Chevrolet for free and receive a $20 instant rebate as well. More details at barrycullen.com. I am doing some pre-orders for Live with CDP t-shirts coming soon. They're going to be priced at $20 and come in many sizes and colors. So if you're interested in a shirt, please DM me and let me know, because I'm doing a pre-order to see how many people are interested in purchasing a shirt that will support my show as well. And also, guys, if you'd like to support my show, again, you can do it through PayPal at chrispomay19@gmail.com through PayPal. And also, I am on Cameo. I joined the Cameo family. So if you'd like a Christmas greeting, a birthday greeting, a pep talk, check out my website on cameo.com/Chris D. Pomay and book your Cameo with me today. And all the proceeds from my Cameo will go to my radio and media show as well. You can follow this content creator on TikTok at Live with CDP. StreamYard is the official live stream provider of Live with CDP Sports and Entertainment Talk Show. If you're into webinars or podcasting, check out StreamYard.com. Finally, guys, Live with CDP Sports and Entertainment Podcast. The audio version is on these platforms: iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, Spotify for podcasters, Apple Podcasts, Breaker, Pocket Cast, Spotify, Castbox, LinkedIn, Pandora, Tuned In, YouTube Music, Good Pods, and remember to hit that subscribe notification. You can also email the show at Live with CDP Sports and Entertainment Talk Show at cpomay19@gmail.com. And again, I want to say thank you to my guests today on the news for coming on here today. And just give me a little bit of time tonight, and I'll have the audio and the video posted on my social media pages as well. And again, next Live with CDP Sports and Entertainment Talk Show, again sponsored by barrycullen.com and wellingtonbrewery.ca, Friday, December 13th at 9:30 p.m. Eastern, with Steve Bermal, the Buffalo Bandits TV and radio analyst, and we're going to break down the Bandits' opening win against Rochester and talk about their upcoming road game Friday night, and hopefully a win against the Ottawa Black Bears as well. And before we wrap this show up, guys, Thursday night football, the 7-6 Rams and Matt Stafford take on Brock Purdy and the San Francisco 49ers, who are 6-7. Niners coming off a big win over Chicago. The Rams, a huge win over the Buffalo Bills last week, 44-42. Again, thank you to Eli Ong from WGN News for coming on here in Chicago. And I want to say thank you to everyone watching this live streamed and on my audio platforms as well. And again, brought to you by Barry Cullen Chevrolet Dealership and Wellington Brewery here in Guelph, Ontario. I hope everybody has a great night. Stay warm, and we'll see you back here tomorrow night at 9:30 Eastern with Steve Bermel, the radio and TV analyst for the National Lacrosse League World Champion Buffalo Bandits. Have a great night, everybody.